Welcome to the second game analysis of the No Castling World Masters played at the Sparkassen Chess Trophy 2021 in Dortmund this year between the two world champions, Viswanathan Anand and Vladimir Kramnik. We already analyzed the first game, and again, I have here Vladimir Kramnik himself, Nenad Tomasev, and Ulrich Paquet as the two experts from the world's leading artificial intelligence, AlphaZero, from the company DeepMind. And in this video, we are looking at the second game of the match, where Vladimir had the white pieces and started the game with the move first c4 against Viswanathan. And I think it's especially interesting because both of the players analyzed the position which was on the board after a few moves before the game. And yeah, maybe Vladimir can say again what was his idea in the opening in this game.
Yeah, I thought this line is very principal after c4, c5, that white plays quickly d4, and then in this particular position after e6 is playing e4, because, yeah, this well-known theoretical position in standard chess, but the fact that black cannot castle seems to be a little bit more in white's favor, yeah.
Okay.
That both sides are not castling, and I remember I had a look at, very briefly, not too deep, but and that was it, no other move. And when Vishu played rather quickly e5, I just thought that probably it's his preparation, and that's why. Well, it was clear to me also during the game that knight f5 or knight b5, both moves are very principal and quite dangerous for black normally, but I decided for something a bit safer, knight c2, where the effect of preparation will not be decisive at least, and white still, I thought, keeps a pleasant position. But actually, as my opponent has mentioned after the game, that he was not sure if he hadn't confused this with some other position, that he was not sure actually e5 was his preparation in this particular position. So maybe, yeah, knight f5 was a better move, and under normal circumstances probably I would have played it, but decided to be, to avoid some preparation of the opponent and to get to game to a more positional, route.
First of all, instead of this e5 move in classical chess, with both sides having the option to castle, bishop b4 would be the main move. And yeah, you'd already told us that you prepared this move as well. And AlphaZero also shows a nice line here for white. Maybe we can look at that, yeah?
Yeah, my preparation was f3 after bishop b4. Yeah.
f3 to stabilize the e4 pawn. And critical now is maybe the move d5 to strike back in the center. But maybe you can show us the line of AlphaZero, Nenad?
Yeah, well, I think as we've been discussing, it's also the line of Vladimir, so not just of AlphaZero, which goes takes, bishop b5, d e4, knight c6. So it's getting a little bit tactical, right?
Yes.
B3 check, bc, queen d1, king d1, and a6. And yeah, this is a slight plus for white, something like slightly over 60% expected score. So it gives...
yeah, important to mention, sorry, that after bishop a4, black has bishop d7, of course, taking back the knight. Yeah.
So best move for white here is?
Bishop c5?
Bishop c4.
Oh, sorry, I'm thinking of move 6.
Okay. No, I mean, after this a6, white will stay with an
bishop
endgame.
a4, bishop a4, bishop d7, yeah. But I also think, if I remember well, I think I stopped somewhere here and thought that white has a certain, maybe small plus on bishop c4 and bishop a4. Both moves were interesting, and that was the end of my preparation. Okay. But also, if I remember well, e takes d5 instead of c takes d5 was also interesting for white. So I thought, in general, this line is prosperous. I mean, at least black doesn't have an easy game, and also I thought maybe the main move is bishop c5 instead of bishop b4.
So this position to play a bishop c5 instead of the in classical chess main line bishop b4, and here you wanted to go back to c2, yeah?
Yes, that was my plan, and then to get then black will play like d6, bishop d7, king e7 at some point. My idea was to play f3, bishop e3, queen d2, and then it's a position, yeah, playable position, maybe not much for white, but it's a long game and interesting position. So that was my preparation, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, maybe we can show here on the board just how AlphaZero plays this, because it's instructive what you do with your king in these types of positions, right? So here after f3, already some kind of a manual castling maneuver commences. So king e7, bishop e2, actually, so slightly different plan to the one being mentioned, a6, a3, bishop a7, just moving the bishop away, rook 1, preparing to push, rook e8, bishop g5, just putting an unpleasant pin, king f8, f4, now e5, striking in the center, f5, so taking some space on the king's side, h6, bishop takes, queen takes, so fighting for d5, right? G3, king g8, so king improves its safety. Knight 5, queen d8. And yeah, AlphaZero thinks that white has a slight plus here, nothing serious, so black is fine.
Yeah.
And it's just a very interesting position.
Yeah, it's interesting because, of course, in the first game, we saw both sides staying in the middle with the king. And here in this position now, black should play in AlphaZero's terms of view this king e7 maneuver. So it always depends on the position where to put the king. Yeah, it's not obvious which is the best idea.
Frankly, I can add that, yeah, it's probably a slightly better way of playing than what I would probably do. But I don't have the nerves to have my king on e1 with a bishop on a7 for the half of the game. So I would probably play like something like bishop e3, queen d2, you know, something safer, just that my king can go to f2 one day, which is maybe slightly inferior objectively, but at least it's more human. Yeah, it's easier to play. Bishop e3, queen d2, bishop e2, king f2 at some point. But maybe the position is, well, approximately equal. And still a bit more comfortable for white. But yeah, I wouldn't you know, just have enough courage to have my king on e1 with this bishop on the diagonal and just letting it be, you know. So I wanted to.
Okay, that's the difference of machine and human thinking. Yeah, so we saw the main line with this bishop c5 move after the opening instead of e5. And okay, after e5, Vladimir already told us that he thinks that knight f5 or knight b5 is critical. What does AlphaZero say in this position?
AlphaZero really likes knight f5 and thinks that white has a somewhat serious advantage. So here goes like d6, bishop g5, h6, again an exchange on f6 as in the previous line, h4.
And the difference is maybe here that the bishop is much worse than the lines we saw, yeah?
Yeah. h4, h5, knight b5. So getting a bit tactical there, rook b8, taking on d6 even now.
White is winning a pawn already, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, but black has some compensation with this d4 square. I mean, I wouldn't call it a compensation, but I would say more like a good drawing chances. Humanly, it looks like that.
Yeah, but if this is the best line to play with black, then we can say that white has a nice advantage after the opening with this knight f5, yeah?
Yeah, probably. I mean, even, yeah, that's true. But I think even probably after knight c2, it's still rather comfortable for white, yeah?
Yeah.
So I guess finally, probably e5 is not the best move, and probably we should have just confused it with some other line. I feel.
Okay.
But here the point was that yes, I was bishop e3. I played d6, I think, and I think this was a critical position. Of course, f3. I mean, my plan is anyway to play f3, queen d2, rook d1, bishop e2, something like that. But I didn't like f3 because of knight b4. I didn't want to give this option to black, but probably I mean, I underestimated white's pluses of the position, because now I have to take on c5 and those massive exchanges, knight takes c2 check, queen takes c2, dc5.
Sorry, yeah.
And taken on c2, queen c2, dc5. And I thought it shouldn't be much for white, but because, not clear why, but in fact, computer, I think, gives quite considerable plus here to white. Even though I still humanly doesn't look like it's, so to say, it's a big deal for white, but that's why, otherwise, of course, I would have started with f3. And instead, I decided to play queen d2 to avoid this line. But I somehow I felt like black is not going to play knight g4 because it looks a bit dangerous. But finally, Vishy played it. So all in all, we can conclude that, and after knight g4, white doesn't have much. So all in all, I've concluded that f3 was a principal move and probably leads to a certain advantage. And after knight g4, which is a very good move, Vishy used this opportunity to play it. And then, yeah, I have to go to this position. And I thought actually before playing queen d2 that I will have these ideas of f4 and because black is kind of discoordinated and I can try to play for initiative and that might bring me some some advantage maybe, but in reality probably black is just in time to equalize. Because yeah, that was my plan, h3 f4, and it looks a bit dangerous for black in some lines, but it seems that not enough for white to gain any serious advantage.
Yeah. So that was a game. How does AlphaZero evaluate Vladimir's thoughts here after this d6?
Yeah, AlphaZero agrees that f3 was the way to go, still keeping some kind of a plus, and then not going for the knight b4 line just being discussed, but rather bishop e6. So it agrees then that knight b4 doesn't do much for black. Queen d2, h5, h4. So
always these edge pawn moves we saw in a lot of games. Yeah,
indeed, giving some options to activate the rooks later on. a6, rook d1, rook c8, g3, queen a5, king f2. Right. So this is where the king maneuver starts. Bishop takes, knight takes on e3, knight d4, and yeah, it continues. Bishop d3, g6, king comes to g2.
But we can conclude here that white has a nice position. Yeah. So
yeah, well, actually, during the game, I thought Vishy would go for it, and I assessed it as more or less okay for black. I mean, but maybe I was wrong. Maybe white has some advantage because I thought black can get his king to e7 in those positions, and queen c5 has some control on the black square. So okay, probably white is a bit better, but nothing so serious. But maybe actually it's more difficult. I mean, more difficult than that for black. Yeah, that in fact white has a kind of stable plus. Yeah, here. Yeah. So that was that's maybe my wrong assessment of it. That's why I thought that because this position is very fine, more or less fine and playable for black, that Vishy wouldn't go for knight g4 for this kind of tricky endgame, which can be dangerous. But yeah, my assessment was not probably accurate.
Yeah, so we can conclude that f3 would have been the best move from AlphaZero's point of view. And okay, we saw another nice line with bringing the king to g2. With bringing the king into safety. So, and AlphaZero does like this knight g4 move. Or what does he say, Nenad?
Yeah, knight g4 is definitely the way to go. And from that point onwards, the game is more or less equal. Almost a non-existent plus for white, I guess.
Okay, so again, Vishy played very strong in the opening phase with his knight g4 idea and finding the way to equalize the game.
Yeah, there was one moment, though, I think, where a little bit more maybe of an advantage could have been kept. So after rook d1, check, knight d4, right? If you go just a little bit back.
Yes, rook d1, check, knight d4.
So here it prefers bishop d7 slightly. After knight d4, I guess, again, like white has a little bit more. Where white loses the advantage, I guess, entirely is bishop d3. Actually.
Okay, so this f4 idea was very strong. King e7, and now he finds a way to remain a little edge with white.
Yeah, so instead of bishop d3, it wants to play knight takes d4, basically.
So take, and giving a check. Take, and playing after f6 is c5, and okay, at least having these nice pawns. And now he says white is a little bit better.
Yes, nothing serious, but it still has some kind of a remaining plus.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw this line, but I was a bit worried, yeah, because these black central pawns are very powerful, and if it gets to e4 d3 one day, I really have a problem. So it's a very risky way for to play with white if you are not AlphaZero. And also I was not sure if e takes d4, if white really has anything substantial after e takes d4. I'm not also sure. Yeah, I guess knight d5 check, knight d5, c d5. And then it's quite similar position, kind of reverse, yes, situation now. And maybe rook d8, maybe even some g5 ideas. Very strange position, very difficult to assess during a game in whose favor is it, yeah. I mean, like rook d8, maybe trying to go f5. Yeah, I was just was not sure what is going on here and who is better and why. But probably, yeah, I guess it's white who is trying, yeah, here. Yeah, maybe bishop d7 trying to get b5. Yeah, probably it's in white. Also, I thought instead of rook d8, some strange ideas like g5 maybe even, just to break these pawns in the center, yeah. I guess white would play g3. Yeah, it's true, yeah, knight takes d4 was probably better, but yeah, anyways, it's not that much probably for white, and it's very risky. Knight d4, you can get worse easily if things go wrong. Yeah. And so bishop d3, I thought it's very safe way of playing, and also it seems like black still has to solve some issues, which we should have done very convincingly, I think. Yeah, because this position knight d7, knight d5 check. Takes actually rook takes d5 was very critical, but I think with accurate moves black managed to equalize. And also e d5 d6 check, the way I played, it looks like white has some initiative, so very difficult to assess over the board. Yeah, if it's dangerous for black or black is equalizing. Here, yeah, I saw this idea of rook f1 and then bishop e4. It looks, I mean, humanly again, looks quite a bit dangerous for black. So I decided to try this line instead of knight takes d4. And it seems that black is always in time here to equalize in every line.
Yeah. AlphaZero is saying the same, that both players played quite well here, and it was just then okay for black and equal, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it does prefer rook d5, giving it a bit more of a plus, but again, nothing game-changing necessarily.
But the idea is just to play rook c8 and king e6 and taking back the pawn, yeah?
Yeah, my plan was to play rook f1 now. Yeah, maybe that was a try after rook c8. That was my idea, but yeah, it's very tricky. I mean, difficult to say.
Yeah, AlphaZero prefers b3 there, and maybe you can also just put the next couple of moves on the board just to kind of show.
That's the main line of AlphaZero.
And this is this interesting idea of going with the bishop to g4.
Yeah. By the way, I saw it during the game. I saw that it should give white a little bit some pressure, but I couldn't believe it can really, it can give any realistic winning chances here for white.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So black more or less equalized here after the opening with this strong knight g4 idea, and if you show the next moves of the game after take. Places d6, king e6. Vladimir already told us that his idea was his rook f1, g6, bishop e4. But after f5, I think that all was a good defense from black, yeah? Also,
yeah, because again, when I played like rook d1, f4, I mean, it's very difficult to calculate that far, and I just stopped somewhere here, and it looks like white has bishop d5 check, bishop takes b7. I mean, it's very safe for white, and if something goes wrong for black, he can really have troubles. But when I arrived to this position, I found out that he's in time. Black is just in time to equalize. Yeah.
Okay, and also
I remember also instead of rook d2, I looked at king d2, but that was a very strange. I mean, in this position, if I just manage my king to c3, it can be a bit uncomfortable for black. But it seems that I'm not in time.
Yeah.
There was some strange move king d2, but black is fine in several ways, and rook d2 is already. Idea is trying to go king d1, king c2, but that's already losing time, and here no doubt. The position is already heading to a draw.
Yeah, and AlphaZero also evaluates it like that, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
There was an interesting moment later on, I guess, at one point, if we go further down.
There was an interesting moment when I see it seems that I could have got into some small trouble. Yeah, of course, white can make a draw in any. I mean, it's already after rook d7, another accurate move. I decided, okay, now it's time just to make a draw. There is nothing, but of course, bishop f3, any move is just a draw. I mean, without a problem. But I thought, okay, before doesn't matter which move, it's still a draw. And all of a sudden, automatically black took on before. Yeah, I mean, like also in my calculation, I was automatically taken, and then it's a draw. Yeah.
That was the game, and it's ended in a draw shortly. Yeah.
But strangely enough, I think computer was then showing that you can take on d5 and play king d6. Very, very subtle idea, because after king c4, now black has rook c7. Yes, I understand. Very subtle idea. And strangely enough, I mean, there are some issues for white. He still has to fight. I mean, he still have to be very careful to make a draw. But I think he's in time, yeah. But that would have been a very unpleasant surprise, because, of course, I just before it was just very inaccurate and kind of, I didn't pay enough attention. Yeah, could hardly believe white could get any problem whatsoever in this position. So a bit of inaccuracy, but it's interesting to check the assessment here of the AlphaZero of this position. I think that I looked at it a bit just on my own, and I had a feeling that white could equalize. I mean, white could still make a draw, but that would have been a very unpleasant surprise for me.
Yeah. Maybe you show us the line of AlphaZero?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, AlphaZero does obviously agree with the assessment. This is trouble. And even after thinking for a while, it still gives black a 70% expected score. So it hasn't fully decided whether and when white can equalize. So when it comes to these types of assessments, sometimes they are a draw with perfect play. Sometimes they are a win, right? When AlphaZero just can't calculate all the way to the end.
Yes.
Which sort of suggests that white has some fight ahead. And here, after king d6, it gives h4, rook c7. Yes, that kind of a plan. King b3, rook e7, rook d3 takes on b4 with the pawn. Rook e5, putting pressure there. King c4, rook e4, rook d4, and then h6. Which is it?
Yeah, and this pawn endgame, I don't know. Yeah, I guess it's already clear. It maybe only if it ends up in some queen endgame at the end of the day. But otherwise, and probably here, if you leave the machine, it will give already a certain clear assessment if it's a win or not for black.
Yeah, but AlphaZero gives 70%. Yeah, so it's not that clear. So very complex pawn endgames ahead.
Probably with the best play, it end up in some queen endgame, like pawn down, and which is probably. But it's true. I mean, that was just that was a very would have been a very unpleasant and actually absolutely not justified by logic of the game. So before, of course, was very inaccurate.
Okay, but Vishy didn't take the chance, and after this,
he told me after the game as well that as me, he didn't believe that white black has a slightest chance to play for a win here. So he saw a forced draw and he just went for it. I had the same feeling, but yes, sometimes you need to. There are some ideas which are difficult to grasp for human beings during a game, and the computers, they find it very quickly, of course.
Okay. So thank you. Maybe let's conclude the second game. Thanks all of you for analyzing it with us. For the viewers, just subscribe to our channel also for the third and fourth game. And if you have any open questions, just write them in the comments, and we are looking at that at them as well. So thank you, and see you for the third game.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.